and welcome to Canon City Comic Club, a weekly examination of the most memorable storylines in comic books. I am your warden of this space prison that we call podcasting, Tristan Cooper. Also, with me today, as always, Andrew Bridgman.
My full name is Andrew Agar Bridgman Agan, but I take off the last part of my names for simplicity. So
that's nice. That's a nice handle you got
there. It's a normal way to do things, you know.
Also with me today, as always and forever, Carolyn Page.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Page Agar.
Was that
and yeah, or something.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Carolyn Page Agan.
I like it.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's great. And my inhuman power is, I can make popcorn by looking at it. I can make popcorn pop by looking at it.
Okay, no, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So today we are reading Black Bolt, the 2017 critically acclaimed series by I should have looked this up. Saladin Ahmed and Christian Ward. Yep. I looked up how to say Adelan, and I didn't look up this person's name, and I feel extremely bad about it.
It won an Eisner
Award. I was very interested to talk about this story, which is sort of my kind of intro to Inhumans in general, because I don't know
other than the
it.
critically acclaimed ABC series.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Right. So before we get into the story, I did want to just touch base with Carolyn, who suggested to me we should do an Inhuman story. So I picked the most famous one of recent memory. And so why did you want to do an Inhuman story?
I love the Inhumans. They're actually my favorite superhero group in all superhero comicdom. I love them. I just love the society. The Inhuman society is just it fits into such a nice box. I'm sure I'll talk about this a lot throughout this episode, but just the way it's set up, and you know your place, and then it's also so satisfying. You're a teenager one day, and then you go through this mystical process, and then you get powers, and then you're assigned your role in society. It's very fun to dream about that. I'm sure it would feel very oppressive if that was the reality of it. But yeah, and I'm so happy to be talking about Inhumans. And we should also do all the Inhumans. But we should really do the Inhumans written by Paul Jenkins, because that's far superior.
Maybe I should have consulted you on which one to read.
That's a cool one. And there's a guy who can teleport through reflective surfaces.
Okay. There's a dog who can teleport.
The dog doesn't need the teleporting surfaces.
Yeah. The dog's pretty cool.
The dog is very cool.
Dog's pretty good.
Yeah.
So this is an Inhuman story, but it's specifically about the king of the Inhumans, quote unquote, Black Bolt, who is on and off the throne as many times as I am each day. And
yikes!
No, I was just trying to make it
Tristan
relatable.
Has bowel issues, so
Hey, look!
Oh God!
It's like a normal amount. A normal amount. It's a normal amount.
8 to 10 times a day, a normal amount.
It's a normal amount.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a very normal person. We're going to talk about this very normal comic. It is about Black Bolt, who finds himself. We're reading the first and second volumes, which is more or less a complete story.
It's a year's worth. It's 12 issues.
It's 12 issues worth. So it's volume 1 and volume 2. Hard Time and Home Free are the volumes specifically. It begins with Black Bolt in a space prison of his own making.
Awesome. Of his ancestors' making.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we follow his adventures as he makes new friends and breaks out and sort of deals with the aftermath of his absence. But before we get way into the story itself, I do want to get some background on the Inhumans. For those who don't know, I didn't know pretty much anything about the Inhumans before this. I knew some vague beats, but I had to do a lot of research personally about this. So this is what we call continuity catch-up. And what's interesting to me is that the Inhumans have been Marvel's tried to make them a thing for so long. They really try to push them for so long. We had that ABC show that was on for a hot minute.
11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It was
not.
It was
not 2 people liked it. That's pretty good. I would have guessed no one, honestly.
Yeah. But what was fascinating to me is that the Inhumans are so old. They were first debuted in 1965.
Yeah. And the first mention of Adelan is actually in a Jack Kirby written story in 1941.
Was it Captain America?
It was like Muck the Cave Boy or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's been around for decades and decades and decades. They predate the X-Men,
Yeah.
And it's just wild to me that they haven't really come to the forefront even now. And I don't know whether they will now that Disney has control of the X-Men.
There's like a Death of the Inhumans storyline going on. So
Right.
I think that's Marvel kind of admitting like, all right, we pushed this for a while and it's not working out so great, so we're going to pull back a little bit.
That's a shame because they're the coolest.
I mean, there's a lot of options. Like you could see, like they did make a big push. Like part of it was Miss Marvel, who is an Inhuman. She was activated by the Terrigen Mists, which is basically like when Marvel didn't have the rights to cinematic mutants. They would just basically say, hey, here's some magic powder that kind of spreads throughout the city, and people are going to gain powers from that. There's some latent abilities. Inhumans, we should say, we haven't even discussed who these people are. They are basically humans that have been experimented on by aliens like millions of years ago. And they... The Kree, who you might have seen in Captain Marvel.
Loves the Kree.
Huh?
Everyone loves the Kree.
Everyone loves the Kree. Everyone
knows what the Kree is.
Jude Law's character, something Rognog, Eggnog.
Rognog.
Yeah,
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Yep.
Ragnarok, eggnog, Eggnorok.
Jude Law. This is what I'm going to call him.
Jude Law with more hair than Jude Law normally has.
Yes, correct. Jude Law, the reply guy in Captain Marvel. And basically, their home, they got abandoned because they had some sort of prophecy that was like, hey, P.S. Inhumans are going to rise up and kill the leader of the Kree eventually. So they got ditched. So they've been doing their own thing for millennia at this point. Kind of like hopping around. Their base has moved from Uranus to various places on Earth to the moon.
The blue area of the moon.
Blue area of the moon. That's where you can breathe, I think.
I guess.
Yep, there's air there.
Yeah. Dracula's up there on the moon, actually, too.
Is he?
At one point, Dr. Doom went up there and kind of chat with Dracula.
The Watcher was there for a while, too.
Yeah.
That
Watcher.
was his,
He had a
main
big
base.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It's
know.
weird that the Watcher just has a home, like an actual home. I think it gets broken into at some point. He gets killed.
Yeah,
Really?
he's dead, and now Nick Fury, the old white Nick Fury, is the...
He's the Watcher.
He's the Watcher
Wait, is
now.
he still... They didn't, resurrect Uatu yet?
Not that I know of.
There is also the kid who's also named Uatu now.
Sure. It
love comics, 'cause
it
they're
all
normal
tracks.
and easy
It
to
all
follow.
tracks.
It's Uatu. Wrap your head around.
We could talk forever about this. I could talk all day about whether it's night or day on the moon at all times. I don't know because
That depends on where you are on the moon.
Well, if you're on the blue, it's fine. I'm gonna.
This has been Moon Chat.
This has been Moon Chat. I can't get into it. We're going to fast forward to now, right before this comic started, and something else I had to look up because the comic does not explain this super well, is that Black Bolt is in prison because his brother Maximus, who's like the Loki.
He's Loki.
Yeah,
he's just Loki
he's basically Loki. Yeah,
because he's mischievous. He can change his appearance and cause illusions.
He's pretty crazy.
He's always messing stuff up.
And he hates his brother.
His brother.
He's just Loki.
He's Loki. He switched places with Black Bolt. Maximus was supposed to be sent to this terrible space prison, and instead Black Bolt goes there, and that's where the story begins, basically.
Yeah. There's also the whole deal with the Terrigen bomb that is kind of important in the next one, but maybe we get that.
Yeah. Well, the Terrigen bomb was big for all of the Marvel universe, comics-wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's also the Terrigen cloud.
Killed all the mutants.
There's a mutants thing.
Yep. Cyclops for it for some reason.
That is something that you have to take into account for this story, is that it still takes place in an ongoing Marvel universe.
Yeah.
There's another series going on concurrently with this called Royals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Medusa and her crew is doing their own thing, and so they kind of intersect in some kind of sometimes jarring ways. But we should really get into it. Let's announce it right now. We're starting the book breakdown, which is when Black Bolt finds himself in this prison.
Yep.
Doesn't realize what he's doing there for right now, but he does know that he can't use his power, which is the most overpowered power you can imagine. He's they're constantly having to restrain Black Bolt throughout this book because he's such a powerful figure. He can with a whisper, he can just blow everyone away. Like the end of remember Dogma Anyone remember Dogma?
Oh, sure do.
I do remember Dogma. He
Love
has
that.
Alanis Morissette powers.
He has Alanis Morissette powers from Dogma. He can just blow anyone away with his voice, so he never talks, which is maybe why he hasn't really gotten too many solo adventures up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, Inhumans is like a particularly unadaptable thing because the main characters are a guy who never can talk ever, and a lady with like insane complicated hair, and hair is like one of the more difficult things to CGI.
Yeah,
that's why I looked into the show. I was like, how did they do this on the show? Like, oh, she gets her hair shaved immediately.
Yeah.
Like
oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the show because I
Maximus
heard it was
shaves
bad.
her hair to like depower her because they're like, we are not paying for the CGI for this.
Well, they also ditched Lockjaw pretty early on in the show
like
too.
Teleports them
That's
to
why it
like
did that.
Vancouver. And
Why
then,
would
like,
you get rid of the dog?
Because he's expensive.
It's a very expensive
That's
giant
silly.
CGI
There
dog.
should just be a Lockjaw show.
There was a
two.
There's a couple Lockjaw miniseries like Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers teams up with Throg, the Thor frog Thor. Yeah, it's pretty good.
That sounds
Good
fun.
stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, that's all fun stuff. Black Bolt not having fun because he is
in space prison.
He's in space prison, repeatedly being killed over and over again by like this like evil jailer.
Yeah.
Who's like this like demon almost, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It's like when Annihilus had the Human Torch trapped and kept murdering him over and over. It's like that.
Everyone knows
Speaking of the Human Torch.
He's hooking up with Medusa.
He's hooking up. He's fucking banging Black Bolt's lady.
Yeah.
Which you'd think would not be good because hair is pretty flammable and also the worst smell when it burns.
Well, he can control it, right? Hey, here's a question. I wasn't going to talk about anyone's penis this episode.
Yeah.
But Human Torch, do his pubes burn off, you think, when he does it?
I'm gonna say yes.
I'm also going to say
his
yes.
hair doesn't burn off.
Yeah.
The hair on his head.
Pubes are
But
different
it
from
doesn't
normal
it turn
hair,
to
though.
flame, so maybe his pubes turn to flame too.
Oh, okay. We'll revisit this later. Anyway,
This
don't have
is
to.
Dick
I
Talk
don't
with
think-
Bridgman.
this has been Dick Talk.
I'm glad we got
Follow
it out
up
of
to
the
Moon
way.
Chat.
Got it out of the way early.
Okay.
So what's interesting to me is that at first this story seems very self-contained because it's about, for me, a character I was not super familiar with. I knew Black Bolt because he shows up every once in a while in the larger Marvel continuity to just say like no, like very quietly and just like murder someone.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing you were waiting for, is like to get to the fireworks factory, so to speak, in that you're waiting for him to like say stuff.
Yeah.
And
like real tiny font.
yeah. Well, that's what you have to do with like all these characters because a lot of them are so super powerful. Like Lockjaw appears later, but Lockjaw is like out of commission for a little bit because you can't have someone who can teleport anywhere because that would ruin the story.
Yeah,
It's like
So this is part of what I love about the Inhumans is because it gives them the chance to talk about very human things, like aside from their powers, or like talking about the weight of responsibility. And I always love a story where it's just like, oh, it's so hard to be king. Like I've got so much responsibility on my broad shoulders. I love those stories and they're fun. And then they just fucking gutted it. And then he doesn't have his powers. He's chatting it up a little bit.
Yeah, he is talking.
Yeah,
and
he
then
is
he just
very
fucking
talkative.
talks normal.
Well,
Like you can't. He hasn't been able to talk his whole life, and then he's just talking like a fucking normal guy.
Yeah.
It pissed me off so much. Like, wouldn't you be talking in monosyllables? Wouldn't you kind of be at a loss for words? You would think.
Yeah, it's like those people on like the TLC shows who like haven't left their bed in 10 years. If they just like popped up and started walking around, and like, oh, I'm fine now. Like,
Hikikomori just like decides to go outside one day.
yeah, it's like, like no, like you haven't used this muscle in forever. He should be talking like, he's not used to talking. He shouldn't be so eloquent.
I
Basically,
thought it was a huge missed opportunity for character development, for interesting storytelling.
Also, he's kind of a boring character. My take on this is it's a great absorbing man book that happens to feature Black Bolt.
That if this was called Crusher Creel, I've got a crush on Black Bolt.
Yeah.
I would have loved the story way more than I did.
I mean, that was my favorite thing about this book. And like my favorite thing in comics generally is when they're like, I'm going to take this very two-dimensional bad guy and I'm going to make you like them.
Sure.
And I'm going to give them real personality and an arc.
Yeah.
And I love that. And so like all the Crusher Creel stuff in this was just like perfect. I loved it.
Right. Crusher Creel, otherwise known as Absorbing Man.
Yeah.
Great name.
Is also in this space prison as well. He's one of many people that Black Bolt meets, along with a Blinky, who appears to be a small child.
Well, with like psychic abilities.
Psychic abilities. There's Rava, who is a like beefy Skrull.
Yep. Who does not transform into other beings.
She has like 2 like swords. I forget what they're called. Like it's like
Hungry Son,
and
like Angry
Thirsty
Daughter.
Thirsty Daughter. No, it's probably not.
That's
Thirsty
different.
Dad. It's Hungry Man.
Hungry Man.
Hungry
and,
Son.
Kid Cuisine. On each side.
These are my blades, Chef Boyardee and DiGiorno's.
And so I mean,
Metal Master.
Yeah. And Metal Master Molib.
Molib.
Let's just call it Metal Master.
Metal Master. Sure. It's not. Are those the same?
Yes.
Metal
I was
Master
Googling
and
this
Mold
before
are
to
the
show
same.
you that you were wrong about what you think happens to the character.
Okay. Yeah. No. I guess I was. I was a little.
Check out marvel.fandom.wikia.com.
I was a little mixed up. But
how could you be confused by a comic book? The most normal, easy to follow thing in the world.
Okay. Yeah. So the Inhumans. Who doesn't know all about
all
them?
of these details.
Actually, I could tell you about them.
Carolyn could probably.
You have done so without using that voice throughout.
That's Carolyn's normal speaking voice. She normally sounds like Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah,
this is all put on.
All put on.
Oh.
Give me your blood.
Can I see your blood?
Just a little bit.
I'll put it in my machine.
Hot Theranos references come in
There's
on
like
this comic
3
book.
shows in development. Everyone's gonna know this shit.
Yeah, that's true. This will age very well, I'm sure.
Can't wait.
So eventually Black Bolt teams up with all of the other prisoners, and they kind of like go on a jailbreak a little bit. They kind of have like these misadventures along the way. Like you can kind of tell like each issue there has to be like a fight because it's a monthly comic condensed into a graphic novel later. So each one of them is like, well, did they really have to fight Rava? Did they have to fight?
That was so fucking unnecessary. Just like they have to fight to initiate, and then how, like the whole jailbreak, how they broke out was very unclear to me.
Yeah,
I was getting more and more mad because Black Bolt was just like me.
Sure, I do.
And like,
I do like when the comic books do things like put a character in jail and like kind of depower them, because like it's interesting to see a character have like just stripped bare and like put in a very uncomfortable situation when they previously like were so like powerful.
yes, I agree with you, but they didn't do anything with that. He was just like,
He became good friends with Crusher Creel.
I mean, kind of just through stilted, awkward conversation. Like, oh, what's a wishbone? That's how Black Bolt talks, I bet.
yeah.
Oh,
Something that we haven't talked about.
I love you, Medusa. I miss you. I regret everything that I did to our son. I'm the king of Adelan. I was raised in a bubble.
I looked up why he gave his kid to Kang the Conqueror.
Kang.
And it actually makes kind of sense. Like the incursion thing was happening.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'll just hide him in time. There's probably other time travelers you could give him to other than Kang the Conqueror, but
Maybe Cable. He loves taking care
Cable
of time.
loves kids.
Time hopping
Cable
kids.
is a time babysitter.
That's his whole thing.
Oh my
That's his whole
God.
thing. So, about the son, something that is questionable but interesting about the Inhumans, big into eugenics.
Yes.
That's their whole thing.
They do have like what is described even on Wikipedia as a caste system.
They do.
Yeah.
And that's gone through, which I think is part of what's interesting about the series, and it's like it's a way for Marvel to comment on that. And but Black Bolt and Medusa weren't supposed to have this baby that they had.
Yes.
Well,
But they did, because you can't quit fucking.
here's something. I don't know if they retcon this.
Mhm.
They're cousins.
What?
Medusa and Black Bolt are cousins, which is like very right then. It's like, hey, this is classic caste system, feudal, like monarchy stuff. Like marrying your cousin,
Cool.
doing some incest.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Game of Adelan.
Yeah. Anyways, what were we talking about? Incest?
Blinky?
I was gonna talk about the art in this book, which is like extremely good.
Let's talk about that.
Christian Ward is the artist. He's done stuff like I first remember seeing that in Infinite Vacation, which was this wild book where like you like change universes with an app on your phone. But like it's like super colorful, like it's very designy in a lot of ways. There's that scene where they're breaking out and they meet this like big baby.
Yeah, Monstro or Monstroso.
And Blinky is calming the baby, and like there's all these like wild effects, and it like just like carries throughout the book. It's like a real treat.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice colors playing around, a lot of like trippiness to it.
Yeah,
it really helps kind of make the place feel alien.
Yeah,
I think
it feels very alien, very cosmic.
Yes,
very nice.
The art was beautiful, and it really played into. They do a lot of like flashbacks and like interior kind of walking through the pathos of these characters, and it was really beautiful to see that. I did love the art in this book. I had some problems with the writing, and the dialogue, especially. Shut the fuck up, Black Bolt. But I did like the art quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. What I always enjoy, no matter what and where, is when a dog shows up.
Yeah.
This is when the breakout is not super successful, but Lockjaw does show up, and Lockjaw like breaks every comic ever because it's a dog that can teleport anywhere.
Instantly.
It's a giant bulldog, sometimes drawn as a pug, but mostly a giant kind of bulldog-like creature.
Yeah.
I like it all. I love a giant space meatball.
Yeah.
You can just
He's very
smush.
big.
Yeah,
He's got a little wishbone thing on his head too.
Yep.
Oh, there's a penis thing. Maybe Black Bolt has one of those wishbone things on his penis.
What is wrong with you?
What? Wait, what's wrong with that?
You are on a watch list, Andrew.
Probably.
Just trying to talk about a nice dog.
I'm just giving what Tristan wants. Tristan is always like, I love it when you talk about characters' penises.
Yeah, no, that was my cue we talked about earlier. It's like, hey, remember this cute dog I'm going to bring up? That's when I want you to spring your
the dog's
wishbone
penis.
idea.
I said Black Bolt's penis.
Oh,
all right.
God.
So,
anyways, Lockjaw's great. And he's also with Miss Marvel now, right?
Yeah.
They team up for a while.
Yes.
I don't know
do
if they're still...
at one point.
They were hanging out for a while.
Like, because they introduce her as an Inhuman, and so, like, that's how you lure them in.
Yeah.
Lockjaw's very loyal. He's been with Black Bolt since the beginning of his life. He wouldn't leave Black Bolt.
Yeah, when he was, like, trapped in, like, the no-sound room.
His space orb, baby orb.
Yeah.
He was in a room for a while, too.
Yeah.
Something that sort of kind of spoke to me a little bit about like what this book is like kind of hinting at times is that like it endears you to a lot of these like prisoners, and like a lot of them are there like kind of like driven up the wall, driven insane by like the actual punishment that is being enacted upon them, which is killing them over and over again. There's one point where a character, they are all visited by like ghosts of their past, like illusions that are not real, and they're all trying to like ward them away. And one of the characters, Molyb, M-O-L-Y-B, however you spell that.
Metal Master. There's a very easy name for the character.
I don't know. I prefer Molyb.
And he's a master of metal.
We're not sure that these are the same person.
I am 100%
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I looked it up on fandom.
Okay.
I used to write for fandom, and I can tell you some of that stuff is not accurate.
It's crowdsourced, therefore it's right.
Yes.
When has the crowd been wrong?
Never.
A lot of times.
Never.
Okay,
So eventually, everyone kind of like snaps out of it, except for Metal Master,
Molyb,
who is like hurting other people who are trying to like dissipate his demons or whatnot, and eventually just gets like stabbed. Just like right through.
Rala is just like, this is not working.
This is not working. Just like get rid of it.
And he's gonna kill Absorbing Man.
He was gonna kill Absorbing Man, but that's kind of the thing, is that the way it's set up is like this person has been in the jail so long that they're kind of like hopeless.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah. So at that point, and it's not a new concept, but it is like slightly less explored for
like
comic books
in Shawshank Redemption,
right? And it's like, well, a little bit less so in that being in prison so long like makes you more of a criminal than when you came out.
Yeah.
And it makes you less ready for society, I guess.
But
Yeah, like
that
Brooks.
doesn't really happen to any of the other characters. Like it seems like this prison really worked. Like these people are reformed by the end of it.
Well, like, the child shouldn't have been there. Like Blinky was
I
like,
agree that children should not be in prison.
Yeah.
That's a hot take, but I really think that.
that did seem to be like a point they were making without being super heavy-handed about it. It was like, hey, no one deserves this kind of treatment. Even if you're a criminal, like there are inhuman treatments that are given to prisoners sometimes. And no one really deserves that. And it doesn't do anyone any good, and it's just torment and torture for torment and torture's sake.
I will say that it does kind of wrap back around at the end. We'll come back to the very end of the book, which I think is what kind of like wraps up in a neat little bow. But we should move on because we're only like halfway through the story at this point.
Just to summarize the rest, the Absorbing Man gets yelled at and goes into the jailer's brain and explodes the jailer's brain.
That's correct.
The end.
All that happens, and you get this really cool like spirograph of
It's
explosion.
awesome, yeah.
It looks so cool. I love it.
And Black Bolt does get his powers back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
but
all
then he
of a
loses
sudden,
it.
and then he loses them again forever.
Or does he?
Oink.
So you can.
Oink.
So he uses them and it's awesome, and then it's like, well, you can't use them anymore because we got to build up to another epic moment where you use them yet again, basically.
Yeah.
That was so. That was what bothered me. It was like you could see so easily what was coming, and like the Inhumans have, being such an incredible property, they have the opportunity to talk about real morally ambiguous issues and these things that aren't black or white, especially dealing with like prison and rulership and society.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just were like, nope, fuck it, like here's a dog.
They do, but with Crusher Creel. Crusher Creel gets all the good story. He gets all the good
You're right.
character build. And just Black Bolt's also there, being like a boring Ned Stark type, who's like, I don't know, I'm used to being very wealthy.
Even his like short conflict that he has.
I don't know how to make an egg.
Yeah, I don't know how eggs work. Like, all right.
When they get back to Adelan or New Adelan, like he is people are onto his brother's game, and they think that he's his brother.
Yeah.
Maximus, but he's not. So there's like kind of a back and forth there, but that's kind of resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then there's like one of the better issues or chapters in the story is like a whole story like chapter dedicated to Crusher Creel's funeral.
Yeah.
And it's all they meet Titania, who is like Titania.
Yeah.
One of those.
Titania?
They meet Tanya, and she's obviously devastated by it. But they spend a lot of time like this. This is in like stark contrast to another book we read, which was Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, which they spend exactly one panel on the like very silly superhero funeral for the character, for the supervillain of the story, and then it just kind of ends. But for here, there's a protracted story about this man who's done a lot of bad things, but did like one good thing on the way out, basically.
Yeah.
And Captain America speaks at the funeral.
Odin's son speaks at the
Odin's
funeral.
son, Thor, without his hammer, basically shows up.
Sure.
Also says some words. And it was kind of remarkable to me to spend that much time on someone who maybe has been thought of as a lost cause by the rest of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
In that way, I guess, like thought of as like an irredeemable criminal.
Again, like it's so good. Like this is a great Absorbing Man book. It's just a great Absorbing Man book.
Yeah.
And like that is the through line of really the whole story is his arc and his legacy, kind of, which is like incredible. It's incredible they focused this much on Crusher Creel.
I really liked the Captain America appearance, and also that was a nice discussion of like these people are always enemies, but there's like a lot of respect, mutual respect, which you think you'd need if you were like battling these people day in and day out, you know.
Also, Absorbing Man once turned himself into cocaine. So
yes,
yeah,
No,
he's turned himself into
Did
cocaine.
you just like look at this up or something?
no, it's
yeah,
in the,
I was looking up.
Oh,
Did they mention it in the book?
Oh, and maybe that was a different.
Maybe.
I
I
also
was
read
Googling like what's the weirdest stuff he's turned himself into, and it was cocaine.
I think that was in the story.
They might have talked.
Anyways, that's cool. But
Anyways.
then what would did he like snort himself, or did he just like feel crazy?
I don't know.
Gets
It was in
someone
a
else to
Marvel
snort
Knights. It was in a Marvel Knights one.
Okay, so that might not be canon or not.
okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know.
Because the Daredevil stuff was, but some of the Punisher stuff might not
It
have
was
been.
a
I don't
Spider-Man
know.
one, I think.
Yeah. There's a
don't
lot
know.
of stuff going on there.
Everything.
And they kind of like decided what was canon and what wasn't.
Yeah,
I think.
post Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Anyway, at the end of the funeral, Lash shows up.
Oh, no,
remember
not Lash.
You know Lash?
Oh,
Yeah.
he's one of the new humans.
Cool.
I like that guy.
Yep. Kidnaps Blinky, the child, who is the only one of the crew who's really like hung around. I think Rava and everyone else went
Rava,
kinda,
Metal
like,
Master,
took
and
off.
Monsteroso left.
Can we take it back to one of my favorite moments in this, where Rava's just like bye and just fucking flies off into space?
Yeah.
I loved that. I was like, that's great. I didn't like that she talked in the third person. Like, why give aliens like poor grammar? That's always reads as a bit weird to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
But fucking flying off
That
to
was
be a
very
space
cool.
pirate, I thought was awesome. Anyways, back to the funeral and
The
Blinky
The
and
funeral,
Lash.
it's like happens in quick succession that Lash, who's this big beefo, kidnaps Blinky. Blinky all of a sudden turns into the jailer, who's been possessed. Some lingering psychic thread of the
Sure.
jailer like
Yeah.
possesses and like morphs Blinky into like this giant beast who
Yeah.
says like, name your crimes, repent your crimes over and over again. It's the same song and dance, I guess, that's from the space prison. It's like this giant character who's like very hard to defeat, and there's a lot of kind of like a psychic battling going on. Blinky's like astral projection, like eventually like kind of like brings in the astral projection of the Black Bolt's son, who is met briefly earlier in the story, like, but it's just like so briefly that I didn't feel like it was much of an impact. I felt like I wanted more of that up
It's like,
front.
hey, Dad, you're a jerk. Like, we're establishing that I don't like you
Yeah.
for later.
He's
Yeah,
like, you
it's-
brought back another fucking kid? Like, where were you? You gave me away, and
mean
not to
Kang the
Cable.
Conqueror.
Yeah.
Hey, I could have been with Cable. He's cool. He's got a metal arm.
Yeah. And we do see a lot of like really like, again, like super well crafted scenes that like look amazing. All these like mind bending like memories that they go through. They see Black Bolt's like childhood, like being raised as a kid who has to be like taught like not to scream when he wakes up and like murder everyone like he murdered his parents. And
So
Lockjaw's there the whole time being a
Yeah,
good
he
doggy.
is.
It's very
Yeah, he
it's
is.
very nice. And eventually, meanwhile, while all that's happening, Lockjaw grabs Tanya, as we're calling her now,
Okay.
and brings her to Absorbing Man's grave, and he just like gets resurrected.
Well, like he said, like a part of him, he has the nice power of like he can turn into like anything. So like, yeah, a particle of him
Stayed
left
on his ball and chain.
Yeah.
So he's got like a Wolverine Hulk thing going on where he can kind of regenerate from a single cell.
I guess,
Yes,
or like
yeah.
Cell from
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. Anyone? Just me, huh?
Just
Okay.
you.
Just
It's
me.
you.
All right.
We're not
someone.
nerds.
I only know
Tristan.
Someone
original
did.
Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z. Your
More of
newfangled
an
Dragon Balls.
Inhumans.
You're more of a GT guy.
Okay. Dragon
I know
Ball
that's
GT over
one.
there. No, everyone loves that one.
It's
Got
the
it.
favorite, I think.
That's the favorite one everyone loves. Yeah. I did find it like I had mixed feelings about this because it made his sacrifice feel a little bit cheap
Oh really?
earlier.
Oh really?
It's
But
comic books.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it
no
at the
one
point of
dies.
view of this story. It's like at this point in the story, maybe the writer and the creative team know that the book is ending, right? And they're thinking, well, it's comic books, so this character will be resurrected eventually, right? Because it's comic books. Captain America, Thor, everyone. Black Bolt dies like 1 million billion times and comes back. And they figure like, well, he's gonna come back. How about we do it on our terms and we have our emotional resolution in the story our way. And that's something I can kind of like get behind. But the thing is that like he's resurrected, which is cool, but he doesn't really do anything in the story after that. He like kind of comes back and tries to
reunites
fight
with
the
Tanya,
jailer.
and their love is very strong.
He's just like a good husband and friend.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm down to read a comic about
Sure,
that.
sure.
Like just a human story
Mhm.
where but these people happen to have crazy powers.
Yeah.
He like has like a fun neighborhood in like New York, like in the Bronx or something.
Yeah.
Like the bartender knows, oh, Absorbent Man.
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
I'll pour you a shot, Absorbent Man.
Oh, I can't
It's great.
believe Crusher died.
Oh, not Absorbent Man.
Crusher
oh,
died.
Oh man.
Crusher
a
Creel.
toast to Absorbing Man who
Yeah.
fought Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he kicked Thor's ass one time. Remember that?
He probably also did a lot of like just unspeakable crimes that they're just not mentioning. Like I'm sure he murdered untold thousands of people.
Well, he talks about how he punched an old woman in the face one time.
Yeah.
When he and
Sounds
Black
about right.
Bolt are
Like,
like exchanging.
That's like I think the kind of story you tell in this thing to be like, oh, you know, he's still human. He made a mistake. But like I'm sure there's been issues of like Thor in the 80s where Absorbing Man murders like 50 people.
right.
And there's like, we can't talk about that. That becomes unrelatable when you talk about that.
yeah. That was before the reset of Secret Wars, so it doesn't really count.
That's true.
And
Were there any like actual like changes from Secret Wars other than Miles Morales being in the 616 and Doctor Doom's face being fixed?
I think there was other stuff.
Was there?
Yeah.
I don't think there
We could
was.
probably look at a big list of stuff that I think it changed a lot of the multiverse.
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are Inhumans now.
Speaking of Quicksilver, Quicksilver marries a member of the Inhumans royal family,
Mhm.
Crystal,
Mhm.
was my outfit inspired today.
What's Crystal's power?
Crystal has elemental powers. She can kind of do like a earth, wind, and fire thing. And
she's the Avatar.
she has inexplicable hair,
Okay.
which is
Just
awesome.
like Medusa.
And she's great. And all the Inhuman royal family is great, except for Maximus, because fuck that guy. But the
Yeah.
coolest one is Karnak, because he's got a sick power.
Well, yeah. They don't really like play into it really that much.
That's why this book wasn't that
Yeah,
great.
it's really just
it was
Black
called.
Bolt.
It is called Black Bolt. It's not called Black Bolt and the Crew.
Yeah, but that's what Black Bolt like is a king and doesn't like he has no identity without his people.
Sure.
Which maybe that's why this book was more about
Right.
Crusher
It's about him
Creel.
finding his way home, kind of.
Yeah.
But I mean, physically, that is what happened in the story.
Well-
like,
And then he makes an
beat-wise.
egg, and
And then he makes an
fucks
egg.
it up, and then Medusa's like, hey man, I'm up on a roof.
He's
And
like,
then
let me touch your dick with my hair.
at the
I
end,
can talk about penises too,
Who-
okay,
How
Bridgman?
dare you talk about penises, Carolyn? That's disgusting. At
At the-
least describe what you think it looks like. Okay, that's all I ask.
Girthy.
Yeah.
Tristan?
I was gonna move on to the end of the story.
We kinda covered that,
let's
I
do
think.
that.
We didn't get to the end of the story, which was where Black Bolt
Hang out on a
finally
roof.
uses his voice yet again.
Oh yeah, but like
Defeats
It
the
comes
jail-
back.
Defeats the jailer, and what I thought, like, had a nice little moment was that, like, for a split second, you see the person underneath the jailer, which we learned
Yeah.
was like who used to be a prisoner. So he
Yeah.
was there so long he became a tyrant, like warden
Yeah.
of the place. The punishment cycle like continued, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Is that like and that's something we don't see a lot in comics, is that the idea of maybe Batman like punching the Joker in the face over and over again and sending him to the Arkham Asylum could maybe not be doing the best thing for him as a person and
he's
his
also
rehabilitation.
climbing a career ladder because he started off as a prisoner and then he became the warden. Like that's a
Wow,
that's
yeah,
a positive
that's
story. I
progression.
think, you
It's
know?
Yeah.
true.
If you stay
Probably.
in jail long enough, you become the boss of the jail.
That makes sense.
like a
Andrew's
s- it's
done
like a-
hard time.
It's like a Sims like career
yeah,
ladder.
totally.
Like, you're a prisoner. You have to go to work as a prisoner, and then you become the
Wow,
warden.
I was thinking more
Totally.
like Toe Jam and Earl. Like you're like a doofus, and then you're
Oh
like
yeah, you
then
become
you're
a Poindexter.
then you're a peanut, and then you're a Poindexter. Hot Toe Jam and Earl references,
Oh,
hot
I love
Theranos
when you become a
references.
peanut. And that's not an insult from any era. It's great.
Yeah. As you said, like at the end, once everything's said and done, there's a reunion with Medusa, who we see in a psychic vision earlier, and her hair's all messed up because like she's dying because she destroyed the Terrigen cloud. It's a whole thing in this other book, and that in between that time, her hair is restored because she gets a hold of the Primogen, another source of the Terrigen mist,
Mhm.
I believe. And again, this is a whole thing that's happening in another book, and like whenever those things happen, like it just kind of like pulls me out because a lot of this is like pretty well self-contained, but like it's always got these hooks like see Royals #3, like and little asterisk and stuff, and it reminds you, it's like, hey, you know, This is still like a in continuity Marvel comic, and it's always going to have those hooks. But when it plays so strongly into the self-contained nature, like in this space prison where like no one else is, all these characters that are locked in here, and then when we get these tastes of the outside world, it kind of brings me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't ask too much of you in this compared to a lot of other books. And I do like that it has like that Planet Hulk thing of like, hey, here's a new environment, bunch of new characters, we can kind of do whatever with them. So like, it seems like there could be consequences for this, as opposed to a normal story where it's like, this is clearly just part of an ongoing thing. Nothing's going to change, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't like when he and Medusa were just like, we're psychically connected because we love each other, I guess. I don't like stories that the crux of which are like, love wins the day, or like you just believed in yourself enough, like when Black Bolt's power finally comes back, because that's not a fucking valuable lesson, because that's not how anything works. It's not a valuable lesson to tell people or to talk about. If you just believe hard enough, that's not a real lesson at all.
That's like
Have you believed hard enough though?
I guess
you
not.
could yell really loud, I think, if you believed hard enough.
I
You
guess
just haven't done
not.
that yet.
That's like all anime. That's like every anime ever made. It's
That's
like,
true.
I believed, I tried hard enough.
Well, there's some anime like Shokugeki no Shoma Food Wars,
Okay.
where it's like you believe in yourself and that keeps you going even when you're defeated, which is a valuable lesson.
Okay.
But just like if you love or believe hard enough, then that will triumph automatically is not a good or practical or real lesson.
Okay. All right.
Love is a lie.
You know what I like about Black Bolt?
Yes.
What?
Please.
Like all those 60s characters, they gave him little wings but in his armpits
Yeah.
for some reason, like
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
like Spider-Man.
And it's like, I don't know why they gave him that. And it's like more
fun.
foldy. It's like accordion-y.
It's kind of a Jack Kirby thing.
Yeah,
I think.
but why? Why armpit wings?
Why
I don't
not? It
know.
kind of gives him more flair because he's kind of just got like a black jumpsuit otherwise, you
which
know?
looks
Yeah,
cool.
which looks kind of cool though. And then you got
Badass.
these like armpit wings, and it's like, well,
I don't
that's
know.
a weird choice.
You don't
kinda
think
like
Black
it.
Bolt looks cool?
I like the armpit wings. That's all.
All right. All right.
I like it.
I'm not against
And
them.
how-
That's
I'm
just
just
his armpit
confused.
hair and it's super long.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah, that's his
that's-
Inhuman, is his armpit feathers.
Not true.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that about wraps up the story. Before we go, I do want to touch on our panel picks for the week. Each week we like to pick that book's our favorite moments and sort of like encapsulate a specific time in the story, or like just a great panel that they really love, or something that you think speaks to your feelings on the book as a whole. I'll go first. Mine's very simple. It's a picture of Black Bolt and Blinky hugging Lockjaw, and like it's like shining. The sun is like shining behind them. It's like a perfect moment where they're both hugging a big dog, and I'm like, that's good. I was like when
That is good.
I was like when Lockjaw shows up. That's very nice.
Yeah, there aren't enough dog comics out there.
There aren't.
We should do the Hawkeye Matt Fraction thing.
Ugh.
Because
Oh my God,
there's
yeah.
some good dog.
Oh, yeah,
there's some
that's-
good
There's a whole
dog
issue.
shit.
There's a dog issue.
Yeah.
There's a dog issue. But this Pizza Dog has a lot of good stuff in there.
That's a
you know.
great comic.
It really is.
Much better than this one.
Well, I think this is pretty good, and not just because I am easily influenced by anything that wins awards, but it's just a great Absorbing Man comic. I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the disconnect kind of.
Andrew, your panel pick. What was that?
Speaking of Absorbing Man, his glorious sacrifice to destroy the jailer,
Oh, okay.
sort of. It's that panel we talked about that's just this huge array of colors in this kaleidoscopy way that's just like totally awesome looking, totally weird and cosmic, and just so much cooler than a regular explosion.
It's like Lisa Frank by way of Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, that's good.
It's,
That's good. You just painted a picture in my mind.
Wow.
Yes. Carolyn, I'm almost hesitant to ask the way you're feeling about this story, but what was your panel pick?
My panel pick was the jailer screaming at Black Bolt, going, "Repent your crimes. Talk about your crimes. You've done crimes."
Oh, no,
And-
Grandma.
That was a different voice
That's
that
what
I
the
was
jailer
envisioning.
talks like
but-
in my mind. Which sums up for me beautiful art, but the dialogue left something to
I
be
see.
desired.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Um,
Overall, would you recommend this comic?
I would recommend the Inhumans written by Paul Jenkins because that's a kick-ass story.
Okay.
And I would recommend this because I think everyone should learn more about the Inhumans and know about the Inhumans, and don't at me that they're not the best Marvel property, because they are.
Okay.
So yes, I would recommend this.
Okay.
But also, I do wish it was a Crusher Creel.
Sure.
Bad guys are
Title.
so cool, man. Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Okay.
MODOK's 11. The Crusher Creel story. Very good comics.
You're going to keep on hammering MODOK. We might have to do
MODOK's
that
so good. MODOK's 11. Let's do it. He
Okay.
pulls off a heist.
Oh, also, I would recommend the Karnak comic because Karnak is a cool member of the
Is
Inhumans.
Karnak also the name of Johnny Carson's wizard character?
Sure.
Am I wrong?
I think that sounds right. Yeah, I think.
You know where
I
he
think
puts
that-
the letter to his head?
Yeah.
And says 3 things?
Yeah.
So
Did
is
you
that-
guys
is
know
that
that
the
Andrew
character?
is 78 years old?
Please.
All of my references are MASH and Johnny Carson. So, yes.
Please. I would recommend this book because I think it's like the visuals are like pretty arresting. There's also some sub-ins as well. There's a short interlude chapter issue by Fraser Irving, who I really like, who is like got some really like nice like painterly like kind of like abstract kind of.
That was an interesting
odd.
issue. Yeah.
Yeah,
Art-wise.
Yeah, and I think Stephanie Hans is in there as well. Briefly, I think she works on a lot of covers, but she had a nice few pages in there too. But overall, I really like the art in the book. I wasn't as put off by the writing as Carolyn, but I was like sort of like kind of made me wish that I had read more Inhumans before before reading this. I feel like I know it's Black Bolt and I know he's the king of the Inhumans, but I feel like there's a better entry point, and maybe that's that Paul Jenkins story that you mentioned.
And what's funny is that that story opens with them being threatened, Adelan being threatened by the Portuguese army, the greatest villain in the Marvel universe.
Oh, no.
Wait, was this when Adelan was on the moon or in New York?
That's it when it's on the ruins of Atlantis, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they move that city all the time.
All the time.
I mean, they're zipping around,
Yeah.
you know.
You got places to be.
Zippy
That's
zip.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Zippy zip. Indeed. As we always say, zippy zip.
Zippity zappity. Come watch the comic Snappity.
Happity.
Thank you both for joining me in this cosmic adventure.
You're welcome.
Next week, if you would like to read along, we are reading a classic Justice League story, JLA Tower of Babel, which is fascinating to me. Until then,
Zippity zappity.
Zippity zappity.
zippity zappity, everyone. Hey, if you like this, be sure to check out Dropout, where we have this show and lots of other Dorkly stuff a week early. You can watch another episode of this right now.
If you're a fan of Dorkly, signing up for Dropout is the best way to support us. You can check out other shows like Table Pop and Today Nerd History way early, and also check out other awesome shows like Actually in Dimension 20.
We'd really appreciate you signing up, and you can also get access to the Dropout exclusive Discord, which is super cool because you can chat with all of us directly. You can argue with us about comics or agree with us about comics, whatever you prefer. And you can get a week free trial of Dropout ahora
That means now.
in Spanish.